everybody, my name is Mars, you can call me MG if you would like, and today's video is probably going to be a little bit of a weird one. So at the start of filming this, it's only the 14th of May, so I'm getting way ahead of myself here with my wrap up in TBR, but I promise there is a reason. So in a couple of days I will be traveling for a little bit of an extended period of time. It's like 4 or 5 days I will be away because my cousin is getting married in a different state, and so I have to travel over there and attend the wedding and then travel back. And then after that, I'm gonna be moving apartments, and I just don't think I will have the time to film this at that point. Like, there's just a lot going on. And so I've decided that I'm going to film this now and insert a clip later on of any books that I read after this point, which I'm not thinking there will be many because I'm going to be so busy, but there's probably going to be a few. But most of this is going to be filmed now, and then we'll just insert a little bit later. But this is just strange to me to be filming this so early in the month, so bear with me. Right now, I have quite the hefty stack in front of me already because I kind of front-loaded my reading for the month, knowing how busy I would be later on. So why don't we just talk about all the books that I've read so far. So first up we have Pterodactyl Rose by William Hayen, and this is a collection of poetry all about like nature and ecology and stuff. And I have a little bit of a story about this. So people have been touring this apartment over the past several weeks because we're moving out of it, and the people who own this building want people to move in. And so my boyfriend and I would just go on little walks during the time people were touring, and at one point we walked past a little free library. I found this poetry collection. We sat down on a bench, I read the whole thing, and I'm like, that was pretty good. And then I put it right back in the little free library. So it was fine. It wasn't anything fantastic. I did like the poem Buffaloes, but other than that, it was just okay, and so that's why I didn't feel the need to keep it. After that, I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It was my first ever Ali Hazelwood, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this was just a really fun, quick read. It wasn't anything spectacular, but I had a good time reading it. I'm still not really interested in any of her contemporary romances, but I feel like if she writes more fantasy stuff, I would be willing to check them out. Then I picked up Scorpion Mountain by John Flanagan. This is the 5th book in the Brother Band Chronicles, and I was worried that I wasn't going to like this because it does take place in a desert setting, and I'm not the biggest fan of desert fantasy. It's just not for me, really. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like the tension was so well written in this book, and it was just a really fun time. It's quite chunky, it's like 500 something pages, but I just zoomed through it because I love John Flanagan's character work and everything, and it's just a really good time. Then I picked up Fire by Kristen Cashore, and sadly, this was a 6 out of 10 to me. I still liked it, but I didn't love it in any capacity, which is shocking because this was like my 3rd or 4th time reading this book, but the first time as an adult, and it just really hit me how weird the age gaps and everything are. So our main character is 17, probably turns 18 during the course of the book because it like follows over the course of over a year, I think. I'm not actually sure, but that's how old she is. And she has one love interest who's 20 and another who's 22, and the 22-year-old has a 6-year-old daughter, and there's this other guy who's really into her who's like 27, and the one there's a 20-year-old who gets a 15-year-old pregnant at the same time he gets a 25-year-old pregnant, and then the 27-year-old ends up with the 15-year-old in the end. It's just like, I know this is fantasy, I know this isn't our real world and things are done a little bit differently, but very problematic to me, and it really impacted my enjoyment of the book because while I love everything else, I couldn't really support a lot of the relationship dynamics because it was just so gross to me. So unfortunately, this was a bit of a bummer. I'm not going to get rid of this or anything because I still love the series, and it wasn't bad. It just wasn't my favorite, so a little bit sad about that, but things happen. Then I read books 4 through 10 of the Animorphs series, and if I consult my reading journal, they are called The Message, The Predator, The Capture, The Stranger, The Alien, The Secret, and The Android. And I did a little weekend reading vlog of this, so I will link that down below for you guys to check out if you're interested. I thought it was a really fun time. I just wanted to knock out as many of these books as I could without losing my mind because this is a really long series and I do not want it to be ongoing for years and years to come. The next two books I read were Hawk Song and Snake Charm by Amelia Atwater Rhodes. These are books 1 and 2 in the Kieshara series, the only two that I like. So long story short, I owned the whole 5-book series a long time ago. I adored these two books. Didn't really like the rest of the series, like books 3, 4, 5 were just meh to me. So I unhauled all of them because it was a very mismatched set. I didn't have any of the same like formats and stuff and it looked weird. Years later, we come to now and I decided to rebuy these two. They're used, they're pretty battered copies. I think it cost me a couple bucks each. And I'm like, I just want these two on my shelf. I don't need the rest of the series. So I got new copies, well, used copies, but new to me, reread them, still loved them, and I'm just so glad to have these again. Then I picked up The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Other Poems by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. This is one of my Dover thrift editions. I only have a couple more left to get through and then I can put them all on my shelf in one spot together and it will look so pretty. These were poems, they were pretty good. Some were hits, some were misses. Overall, it was a pretty fine collection. After that, I picked up The Maid by Nita Prose, and this is a book I got out of a free little library. It's kind of damaged. You can see at the top here, there's some water damage, but it's still readable. And I had a really fun time with this. It wasn't the best thing I've ever read, but it was very fast paced and I thought it was kind of silly. The main character is very autism coded and I appreciate that because I'm autistic. It was quite over the top at times, but overall, I thought it was a pretty decent read. I might keep it. I'm not totally sure yet. I'm gonna make that decision in the next couple of days when I have to start packing my books. If I don't keep it, it's just gonna go back to a free little library for someone else to read and hopefully enjoy. And then the last few books that I have to talk to you about right now are The Golden Compass, which I loved, The Subtle Knife, which I also loved, and if I could pick all of them up at once, The Amber Spyglass, which I'm currently halfway through. These are the 3 books in the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I have these gorgeous 10th anniversary editions that I thrifted several months ago and I'm finally reading them and I'm so glad that I'm loving them. I'm going to put these 2 down because these are all very heavy. But like I said, I'm about halfway through this one and I'm not expecting it to take me very long to finish because I'm just so invested. It was kind of strange getting into this series because I didn't know much, but it's just a really fun time. There's a lot thrown at you all at once and you kind of just have to go along with it, and it's all stuff that I'm enjoying, so I'm very glad. These books are going to have, assuming the second half of this book doesn't disappoint me, these books are going to have a nice special place of honor on my bookshelf in the new apartment because they're stunning and I also love them, so they deserve a place of honor. But yeah, that's my current read. And now we will cut to me in the future, which would still be the past for you, because this video has to go up after I film it, obviously, because that's just how things work. But the future for me, where I'm going to tell you about any books that I've read between now and then. Hello, friends. It is me from the much more recent past, and it's actually 2 days before this video is due to go up, so I'm like, I should probably film the rest of this little clip. So here I am to tell you about the last few books that I've read in the month of May. I am in a new location. This is my office in the new apartment. Things aren't exactly set up the way that I want to. I don't know if I like my bookshelves being quite so far back, but like they're against that wall, my desk is against this wall. Kind of wish a little bit closer there, but I don't know, I might change things around a little bit. That's neither here nor there. What we're doing now is talking about 7 books that I have read between the last time I saw you and now. I think the last one I told you about was The Amber Spyglass that I was in the middle of. and of course I finished that. So I will link the vlog of me reading that trilogy, the His Dark Materials trilogy, down below, because I don't think I mentioned that I was vlogging it, but I was. After that, I picked up The Maze Runner because this was the Nostalgia Train book club pick for the month, and I listened to it on audio, and it was fine. I didn't really care about any of the characters, and I felt like the plot was very simple, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of things happened, but nothing was really life changing to me. Like, it was an okay book. I'm probably not gonna read the rest of the series. That's really it. Then I read Murder Your Employer, which is volume one of the McMaster's Guide to Homicide by Rupert Holmes. If you didn't know, that's the guy who wrote the Pina Colada song. Pretty fun. This is a book that I picked up on a whim. So I went to my cousin's wedding a couple of weeks ago, and my boyfriend was driving to drop me off at my parents' place. And on the way, we stopped at Barnes& and Noble because we had a few things to pick up. And this was part of the buy one get one 50% off sale, and one of the other books we were already getting was also part of that sale, and this cover just had me stunned, and so my boyfriend's like, go grab that book. So I got it, and I read it. It took me a while to read it because I was reading it over the weekend that I was at my cousin's wedding, so I didn't have a ton of time, but it was kind of fun to read it slowly. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was so fun and silly, and I just loved it. So I'm very much looking forward to whenever volume 2 gets released. Next up, we have the main reason why we went to Barnes& and Noble that day, and that is to pick up Jujutsu Kaisen 22 and Chainsaw Man Volume 15. You've heard me talk about these a million times before. These are the two series that I'm currently reading, excuse me, as they are released in these volume physical formats, and both of these got a 10 out of 10. I really liked Jujutsu Kaisen with this volume because the last several volumes have been one extremely long and detailed arc, which, while good, was kind of hard to pick back up every time a new volume came out because you had to be like, wait, what happened with these characters before? I don't really remember, it's been so many months. This was kind of like a sub arc within that, but it was very self-contained. It also follows my favorite character, Maki. That's who's on the cover, so that was a lot of fun. And of course, Chainsaw Man was amazing. I have no complaints. It was so good. I cannot wait to see what happens next. Then I picked up Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, my first time reading this author, and probably not my last. I'm still very interested in quite a few of her books, even though this one was a little bit of a dud for me. I thought it was kind of confusing in the beginning, like the different factions and elements going on weren't super well explained in a way that made sense to me at least. It might just be my problem and other people didn't have this issue, but I was very confused up until the end, and then I kind of finally got it. The main character, kind of annoying, but also kind of boring, so I just didn't care about her. Um, I was interested in the like mystery element of the missing, not roommate, neighbor, the missing neighbor. I thought that was really cool, but the rest of it just wasn't really for me. Like, this book definitely has an audience. I'm just not that. But I will be picking up more from this author, I think. Stay tuned for that, I guess. And then the last thing I have to talk to you about is a manga series that I read. It was only 2 volumes long, and that is Crisis Girls. And this was a silly little slice of life fantasy series, and it follows this girl, Cade, who can raise the dead. She's known as Gravedigger Cade, and she lives in Crisis City, which is in Japan, and she saves people from monsters all the time. And we do meet other Crisis Girls, but I feel like that was the weakest part of this series, because in the first chapter we're introduced to Cade and we're told by the narrator that there will be other Crisis Girls, and the series is Crisis Girls plural, but one of them we meet halfway through and then the other one we don't meet until the second to last chapter, and she really just does one thing and then it doesn't matter. So I'm like, okay, I guess. I wish we had seen more of the three of them together for longer in the series. Also, this was very episodic, and there was a through line, like an overarching story, to this, but it very much took a back seat to the different episodic issues going on, and I wish there was more of an emphasis on that overarching storyline because I thought it was really fun. But that was the last thing that I read during the month of May, so I'm going to hand it back to further in the past me to pick out my books for June, which I'm so excited to read, by the way. Okay, with that out of the way, we are back to me in the middle of May, who had started this video, and we are going to pull my tarot cards for the month of June and figure out what books I'm going to be reading for them. So the first one we have to talk about, if I have my deck here, is the Three of Fae, which is a card that I pulled last month and couldn't find a book for and decided to postpone it, so now I have to fulfill it this month, and I have already figured out a book for that, but I'm gonna tell you about it after we pull the other 3 cards and figure out the prompts for that. So this is our special card for the month. Now we have the deck that's left. Let's split it here, sure, just to prove to you that I'm not putting specific cards on top. We're gonna do 3 pulls, and the first of which is the Fighter. Number 2, ooh, this is an ooze card, the Two of Oozes. And our last card pull for the month of June is the Two of Monstrosities. Okay, so we got 2 twos in a row. That's interesting. I am going to consult my list of prompts to figure out what these cards mean. I will pick books out for them, and then I will come back and tell you all about them. Okay, friends, I am back, and that was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be to find books to fit these prompts. Most of them are books that I was already planning on reading in June, so I'm glad I could combine some priorities there. But let's talk about the 4 books that are on this TBR. So first up, we have my rollover card, the Three of Fae, and the prompt for this is a fish or other sea animal on the cover, and I have decided to go with Fish Swimming in Dappled Sunlight by Riku Onda. This is a Japanese psychological thriller. I did read the summary on Goodreads, but I kind of forget already what it said it was about. It was like a couple spending a night together or something, and there's a murderer maybe? I don't know. I've heard that it's wild and wacky and a really good time, and it's got fish on the cover, which is really the main reason why I picked it, because I could not find anything else to fit this card. I was looking all from the last time I filmed a TBR video when I first pulled this card for a book to fit, so I'm glad I did. The next card we have is the Fighter. In being a class card, I get 2 options for prompts that I get to choose between. So I can either pick a hyped book or a social media scroll. I didn't feel like doing a social media scroll right now. I've gone for a hyped book, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is one that's been all over the internet for like a year now since it came out. I know the sequel came out a month or so ago, and I'm just gonna give it a shot and hopefully I enjoy it. Then we have the Two of Oozes, and the oozes are cards that give you a color to be on the cover of the book, and for this it's a yellow or green cover, and I have gone with The Ghost Faces by John Flanagan. This is book 6 in the Brother Band Chronicles, just double checking that I got that correct. I did. This is an ex-library copy. If anyone has any tips on how to remove the plastic covering without damaging the dust jacket, let me know. But this cover is a foresty background, so there's got green and then this big yellow glow in the middle, so I think it fits the prompt very well. And then for our last card, we have the Two of Monstrosities, which is a psychological horror, because the monstrosities are all different horror subgenre prompts, and for a psychological horror, I'm kind of going out on a limb here and guessing, but I will be reading What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, and I'm going to assume this is psychological horror because I would classify The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe as psychological, and this is a retelling of that. And I'm very excited. If you didn't know, I have published my own retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, and there's always a link to that in the description as well as to my other books. Check that out if you're interested, but I'm interested in reading this other book and seeing what this author has drawn from the original story. So I'm very excited for that. So the only book that I have to hold up for you is The Ghost Faces. I have no idea what's going to happen in this book. This cover is not my favorite, but I'm excited nonetheless. I'm also very much looking forward to the ebooks that I have on this TBR, and hopefully June is just a less hectic month than May. But for now, we come to the end of this video. If you've enjoyed it, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel for more content, and that way I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye everyone!